Welcome back to Sera Werewolf Romance Collection, where the alphas have too much money and the heroines have zero patience. Quick question for the pack before we dive into today's disaster. Where are you listening from right now? Let me know in the comments, and drop a kitten emoji if you're currently trying to work while your pet judges your life choices. Today's story is a wild one. It's sassy, it's high stakes, and it involves a billionaire who thinks buying an entire hockey league is an appropriate way to get a date. But before the first whistle blows, if you want to support the channel and get early access to stories just like this one, hit that join button down below. It helps us keep the lights on and the alphas in line. Now, take a deep breath. The ice is cold, the king is obsessed, and the manager is about to lose her mind. Let's read. Chapter 1. The Silver Ridge Ice Cats. Arena smelled of stale popcorn and frozen floorboards. Katie knelt on the scuffed concrete lobby floor. A steel wrench gripped in her hand turned a stubborn bolt on turnstile gate number 4. Grease stained her fingers. Her auburn hair sat in a messy, sliding bun. A gray team pullover protected her from the biting chill of the ice rink just down the hall. Dark-washed jeans covered her legs. She let out a breath and wiped her forehead with the back of her wrist. Turnstile 4 jammed every Tuesday. A few feet away on a wooden bench sat a faded canvas tote bag. A tiny, scruffy orange head poked out of the top. Tank, her tabby kitten, watched her with wide, unblinking eyes. His ears looked far too big for his skull. He let out a tiny squeak and patted the edge of the bag with a white paw. "Give me a minute, Tank," Katie said. "This gear needs alignment." Outside the glass entrance doors, tires crunched over the gravel parking lot. A deep charcoal SUV came to a halt right at the curb. The tinted windows hid the passengers. The engine let out a low rumble before going silent. The driver's side door opened. Desmond stepped out onto the pavement. He pushed wire-rimmed glasses up the bridge of his nose and smoothed the lapels of his black coat. He walked around to the back door and pulled the handle. Zayn stepped into the cold afternoon air. He wore a tailored midnight plum suit that looked foreign against the backdrop of a minor league hockey parking lot. The fabric draped over his broad shoulders without a single wrinkle. He buttoned the jacket with one hand. His dark hair sat swept back from his face. Katie dropped the wrench with a clatter. She stood and wiped her hands on a rag from her back pocket. She needed to inform these men the arena remained closed for practice. Zayn pushed the glass doors open and stepped into the lobby. Desmond followed close behind. The air shifted. The crisp, sharp scent of cedar filled the enclosed space. Zayn stopped his stride. His chest seized, feeling like a direct punch to the gut. The air vanished from his lungs. He turned his head and locked eyes with the woman standing by the broken turnstile. The mate bond hit him. The pull dragged at his core, demanding he close the distance. He stared at her auburn hair, her grease-stained cheeks, her battered gray pullover. His wolf roared in his mind, recognizing the other half of its soul. Katie frowned. She shoved the rag back into her pocket. The tall man in the plum suit stared at her, with an intensity that made her skin prickle. He looked like a predator, cornering a meal. "The box office opens at 5, Katie said, breaking the silence. "You need to leave the lobby until then." Zayn closed the distance in 3 long strides. He stopped mere inches from the metal barrier of the turnstile. He loomed over her. "Why does this grease-covered woman have the audacity to give me orders?" "You are coming with me," Zayn commanded. His voice echoed off the concrete walls, deep and rich. "Pack whatever you need. My estate sits 3 hours north. We leave now." Katie stared at him. She blinked once. She looked past him at Desmond, who just rubbed his temples and let out a long sigh. I have to fix turnstile 4, Katie said.
She picked up her wrench.
And I have payroll at 3, so no, I am not going anywhere. Zayn frowned. His silver signet ring caught the fluorescent lights. People never said no to him. He ruled the territory. He ran a global sports conglomerate. A simple beta did not refuse an alpha king. You do not understand, Zayn said, taking a breath. You are my mate. Your job here ends today. I will provide everything you require. Tank chose that exact moment to hop out of the canvas tote bag. The tiny orange kitten hit the concrete floor with a soft thud. He trotted right up to the turnstile. He puffed his fuzzy tail to twice its normal size, arched his back, and hissed at Zayn's polished leather shoes. Zayn stared down at the aggressive ball of orange fluff. He had faced down rival alphas. He had negotiated billion-dollar contracts. A kitten the size of a teacup now challenged his authority. Call off your beast, Zayn said, his tone dead serious. Katie could not hold it in. A laugh ripped from her throat. The sound echoed through the empty arena lobby. The tension in the air shattered under the weight of her amusement. She scooped Tank up from the floor and tucked him safely against her gray pullover. The kitten purred, vibrating against her chest. My beast, Katie repeated, shaking her head. Right. Listen, buddy. I do not know what kind of power trip you are on, but I have actual work to do. So take your suits, your security guard, and your weird demands back to whatever boardroom you crawled out of. Chapter 2. Zayn stepped closer, pressing his thighs against the metal turnstile. He needed to make her understand the reality of her situation. She belonged to him now. I am Zayn, he stated, expecting the name to trigger realization. Alpha King of this territory. I own the global sports conglomerate that funds half the arenas in this state. You will pack your belongings and enter the SUV. Katie just rolled her eyes. She shifted Tank into the crook of her left arm. With her right hand, she reached into her canvas tote bag resting on the bench. Her fingers brushed past her stickered stainless steel thermos until she found what she needed. She pulled out a scratched plastic master key card attached to a ratty blue lanyard. She tapped the card against the scanner on the side gate. A green light flashed. The gate clicked unlocked. Congratulations on your title, Katie said. She pushed the gate open and stepped through, putting a solid metal barrier between them. I am Katie, operations manager of the Silver Ridge Ice Cats, and I am busy. Desmond stepped forward, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses again. Miss, it would be wise to listen to him. The king does not make requests twice. Then he should stop making them at all, Katie shot back. She set Tank gently back inside the canvas tote bag. The kitten poked his head out and let out another tiny hiss in Zayn's direction. Zayn stared at her, genuine confusion twisting his features. He slid a hand inside his suit jacket. Women spent years plotting ways to catch his attention. They attended elite galas in uncomfortable gowns just for a chance to speak to him. This woman stood in scuffed shoes, smelling of crushed blackberries and engine grease, and rejected him without a second thought. You defy your king over a minimum wage management position, Zayn observed. He looked around the lobby, taking in the peeling paint on the walls and the flickering fluorescent bulb overhead. I defy a stranger who walked into my building and barked orders, Katie corrected. She crossed her arms over her chest. Look at you. You wear custom suits. You fly in private jets to eat breakfast. You have a security detail for a Tuesday afternoon. She gestured around the cold, drafty lobby. I eat leftover concession hot dogs for lunch, Katie continued. I drive a car that rattles if I go over 40. I am saving every dime I make just to keep my family warm. We live in two different realities. Look, Your Highness, you are out of my league. Zayn processed her words. He took metaphors literally. She stated a fact about social class and wealth disparity. She believed a financial gap prevented their union. She thinks a lack of funds creates a barrier, so I will simply remove the barrier. Out of your league. Zayn repeated the phrase. He nodded his head once, a decisive motion. He turned his back on her and walked toward the glass exit doors. Wait, that is it? Katie asked, her brow furrowing. You're just leaving? Zayn pushed the doors open. The cold air rushed in. I will return, Zayn said over his shoulder. Desmond shot Katie a look of profound exhaustion before following his boss out the door. The black Sioux V idled at the curb. Zayn climbed into the back seat. The door slammed shut. The vehicle pulled away from the curb, leaving the gravel parking lot empty once again. Katie stood in the lobby, staring at the empty driveway. She expected a fight. She expected a display of alpha power. She did not expect him to agree and walk away. Well, Katie said to the tote bag. That was weird. Tank let out a squeak of agreement. Katie picked up her wrench. She turned her attention back to turnstile number 4. She had 3 hours before the box office opened, and the bolt still refused to budge. She pushed the strange, intense man in the plum suit out of her mind. She had a hockey team to run. Chapter 3. The next morning, the sky hung low and gray over Silver Ridge. Katie steered her faded indigo hatchback into the employee parking lot behind the arena. The dented rear bumper rattled over a pothole. She parked in her designated spot near the dumpsters, killed the engine, pulled her keys from the ignition. She grabbed her canvas tote bag from the passenger seat. Tank curled in the bottom, asleep. She slung the bag over her shoulder, grabbed her stickered stainless steel thermos filled with cheap diner coffee, and locked the car door. The walk to her cramped office took 2 minutes. The stadium felt quiet. The ice-rink chill seeped through the walls. Katie unlocked her office door with her scratched plastic master keycard. She stepped inside and flipped the light switch. Her desk sat covered in spreadsheets, vendor invoices, and maintenance logs. She set her thermos down and organized her pens in a neat row, arranging them by height to calm her nerves. She needed to review the budget for new hockey sticks. A knock sounded at the open door frame. Katie looked up. Desmond stood there. He wore a gray overcoat and held a thick, heavy legal binder tucked under his arm. His wire-rimmed glasses caught the glare of the overhead light. "Can I help you?" Katie asked, her hand hovering over a tall blue pen. "The box office is still closed." Desmond stepped into the office. He looked at the peeling wallpaper and the stained ceiling tiles. He placed the heavy legal binder onto the center of her organized desk. The thud made Tank poke his orange head out of the tote bag. "I am not here for tickets," Desmond said. His voice sounded strained, like a man running on 0 sleep. "I am here to deliver the new operational guidelines." Katie frowned. Operational guidelines? We get those from the League Ownership Board in August. The League Ownership Board no longer governs this franchise, Desmond replied. He tapped the thick binder with one finger. Before Katie could ask what he meant, a shadow fell across the doorway. Zayn stepped into her cramped office. He wore a crisp, tailored black suit today. A dark silver tie rested flat against his chest. He looked too large for the small room. He took up all the breathable air. He carried a matte black premium credit card between his index and middle fingers. Katie felt that strange, magnetic pull again. Her wolf paced inside her mind, urging her to submit, to welcome the alpha. She forced the instinct down and gripped the edge of her desk. "What are you doing in my office?" Katie demanded. Zayn slipped the black credit card into his inner suit pocket. He looked at the spreadsheets. He looked at the tiny orange kitten glaring at him from the tote bag. Then he locked eyes with Katie. "You informed me yesterday that I was out of your league," Zayn said, his tone devoid of any humor. "You cited an imbalance in our financial realities." "It was a figure of speech," Katie said. "I do not deal in figures of speech," Zayn countered. "I deal in assets." "I contacted my accountant yesterday afternoon. I wired the necessary capital. I purchased the Silver Ridge Ice Cats minor league franchise. I also bought the stadium, the parking lot, and the surrounding commercial real estate." Katie stopped breathing. Her brain stalled. She stared at the thick legal binder on her desk. The paperwork proved the transaction. Did this man just buy an entire sports franchise because I hurt his feelings? "You bought my team," Katie whispered, the reality crashing down on her. The financial impact hit hard. He spent billions in pure cash overnight. "I bought the league," Zayn corrected her. He leaned forward, resting his large hands on the edge of her desk, right next to the binder. "Now we're even. You work for me. We share the same league." Desmond rubbed his temples. He gave them double the market value just to expedite the paperwork by morning. The accountants wept. Katie looked from the exhausted beta to the smug alpha king. Zayn stood tall, waiting for her gratitude. He believed he solved the problem. He bought a hockey team to flirt with her. Chapter 4. By noon, Zayn installed himself in the stadium's luxury owner's box. The glass-enclosed suite hung suspended over the ice rink, offering a perfect view of the empty arena. It featured plush leather seats, a sleek mahogany bar, and a private intercom system that connected to Katie's office phone. Katie sat at her desk, staring at her laptop screen, the budget spreadsheets blurred together. She chewed on the end of her shortest pen. The Ice Cats operated on a razor-thin margin. Every dollar mattered. She had to stretch the remaining funds to cover travel expenses for their next away game. The intercom on her desk buzzed. A harsh red light blinked. Katie hit the speaker button. "Operations, this is Katie." "Katie." Zayn's deep voice crackled through the speaker. "The lighting over the center ice looks dim. Have the maintenance crew replace the bulbs?" "We replace the bulbs on a 6-month schedule," Katie replied, fighting to keep her voice level. "We do not have the budget to swap them out early just because you think it looks dim." "I own the stadium," Zayn stated. "Change the bulbs." The intercom clicked off. Katie groaned and let her head hit the desk. Tank hopped out of his tote bag, strutted across the spreadsheets, and patted her hair with a soft paw. "He is going to ruin everything, Tank," Katie muttered to the kitten. 30 minutes later, the intercom buzzed again. "Katie," Zayn said, "the seats in the lower bowl feel unsupportive. Hire a contractor to install memory foam padding." "No," Katie said. She slammed her hand down on the desk. "We are a minor league team. Our fans wear coats. They do not need memory foam. And we cannot afford it." "Budget constraints no longer apply," Zayn countered. "Execute the order." He hung up before she could argue. Katie stood up and paced the tiny office. Her auburn bun threatened to unravel. Zayn treated the hockey team like a broken toy he wanted to paint over. He possessed zero understanding of grassroots sports. He threw cash at things until they looked pretty. Her email notification chimed. Katie walked back to her laptop. An invoice marked urgent, approved by owner, sat in her inbox. She clicked the attachment. The document detailed a catering order for the team's post-practice meal. Katie read the line items. Wagyu beef sliders, butter-poached Maine lobster tails, truffle-infused mashed potatoes, imported sparkling water in glass bottles. The total sum at the bottom of the page sent a shockwave through her system. The luxurious meal commanded an outrageous price. It wiped out the team's entire equipment budget for the quarter in a single charge. Are you kidding me? Katie yelled at the screen. She grabbed her stickered thermos and took a gulp of cold coffee. The bitter liquid burned her throat. She looked at the ceiling, right in the direction of the luxury box. She refuses to let me provide for her, yet she stresses over pennies. Zayn sat in the leather chair upstairs, staring down at the ice. He watched the maintenance crew hauling ladders onto the rink. He believed a king must elevate his mate's surroundings. Katie snatched her scratched plastic keycard off the desk. She marched out of the office, her boots stomping hard against the concrete floor. She bypassed the elevator and took the stairs 2 at a time. Her chest heaved with anger. She reached the luxury level. She swiped her card to open the glass doors of the owner's suite. She stormed inside. Zayn turned away from the window. He looked calm and out of touch with reality. "Cancel the lobster," Katie ordered, pointing a finger at his chest. "Cancel the Wagyu. You are ruining my budget." Zayn frowned. "Hockey players require protein. I procured the best protein available. They require pizza," Katie shot back. "They require carbs and cheap electrolytes. You are treating a minor league roster like a royal court. You have no idea how a normal stadium works." Zayn crossed his arms. "Then teach me." Chapter 5. Katie stood inside the stadium's luxury owner's box, her boots planted firm on the plush carpet. She clutched her scratched plastic master keycard in her right hand, the blue lanyard wrapped around her knuckles. The air in the room felt thick. Zayn leaned against the polished mahogany bar. He wore his tailored black suit and a dark silver tie. He looked calm. He looked like a man who just purchased a country instead of a minor league hockey team. "Cancel the lobster," Katie repeated, her voice echoing off the glass walls. "Cancel the Wagyu beef. You are ruining my budget." Zayn frowned. He crossed his arms over his chest, his silver signet ring catching the overhead light. "Hockey players require protein. I procured the best protein available for the roster. They require cheap pizza," Katie shot back. She took a step closer, pointing a finger at his chest. "They require carbohydrates and bulk sports drinks. You treat a minor league roster like a royal court. You possess zero understanding of how a normal stadium works." Zayn straightened his posture. He towered over her, yet she refused to step back. Women in his social circle cowered when he lowered his voice. This beta in a faded gray pullover stood her ground and yelled at him over catering costs. He found the defiance intoxicating. "I own the stadium," Zayn stated, stating a simple fact. "I provide for what is mine. Budget constraints do not exist." "They exist in the real world," Katie argued. She let out a frustrated breath. "If you feed them lobster today, they will expect a luxury spread tomorrow. We run on a strict margin." "I cannot manage a team when the owner throws cash at every minor inconvenience. You will destroy the team's discipline." Zayn processed her words. She viewed his wealth as a hazard. She believed his money damaged the ecosystem of her arena. She possesses a billion-dollar empire at her fingertips, yet she fights me over cheap pizza and light bulbs. "Then teach me," Zayn said. Katie stopped. Her hand dropped to her side. "Excuse me?" "Teach me," Zayn repeated. He stepped away from the mahogany bar. "You claim I lack practical knowledge. You claim my methods damage your operations. I propose a challenge. I will spend 1 week shadowing your position. I will learn the mechanics of a grassroots stadium." Katie stared at his sharp features. "You want to shadow me? You, the Alpha King, want to learn how to count hotdog inventory?" "I want to understand your reality," Zayn corrected her. "If I fail to adapt to your methods by the end of the week, I will step back. I will sign complete operational control over to you. I will fund the team and stay out of your office." Katie narrowed her eyes. She thought about the endless paperwork. She thought about the freedom of running the ice cats without a billionaire meddling in her spreadsheets. "And if you succeed?" Katie asked. "If I succeed, you stop fighting me," Zayn said. He took one step closer. The scent of sharp cedar filled the space between them. "You accept my presence here. You allow me to share this space without argument." Katie weighed the options. He wore $1,000 shoes. He rode in a custom armored SUV. He would never survive a week dealing with jammed turnstiles and broken ice chillers. He would quit by Wednesday. "Fine," Katie said. She held out her hand. "1 week. But we do things my way. No black credit cards, no sudden purchases. You follow my lead." Zayn looked at her extended hand. He reached out and wrapped his large fingers around hers. A spark jumped between their palms. The mate bond hummed, a low vibration under his skin. He ignored the instinct to pull her closer and gave her hand a single, firm shake. "We begin tomorrow," Zayn agreed. Katie pulled her hand back, her skin tingling. She turned around and marched toward the glass doors. She swiped her keycard. The doors slid open. "I am canceling the lobster," Katie called over her shoulder. "I will order 10 pepperoni pizzas. Do not interfere." Zayn watched her leave. He tapped his silver ring against the mahogany bar, a rare smile touching the corners of his mouth. Chapter 6. The next morning brought a bitter chill to Silver Ridge. Katie parked her faded indigo hatchback by the dumpsters. She grabbed her canvas tote bag from the passenger seat. Tank poked his scruffy orange head out of the top, his oversized ears twitching at the cold wind. Katie walked into her cramped office. Zayn stood by her desk. He wore a deep navy suit today, the fabric immaculate. He looked out of place next to the peeling wallpaper and stained ceiling tiles. "Good morning," Zayn said. Tank let out a sharp hiss from inside the tote bag. The kitten vaulted out of the canvas, hit the floor, and marched right toward Zayn's polished shoes. Tank puffed his tail out, arched his tiny spine, and swatted a white paw against the billionaire's ankle. Zayn looked down at the kitten. He did not move. "Your beast remains hostile." "He senses arrogance," Katie said, setting her tote bag on the chair. She grabbed her stickered stainless steel thermos. It felt light. She forgot to brew coffee at home. "We need caffeine before we start the inventory logs. There is a shop down the street." "I will have Desmond summon a barista," Zayn said, reaching into his jacket pocket. "Rule number 1, Katie interrupted, pointing her thermos at him. "No throwing money at problems. We walk to the shop. Like normal people." Zayn dropped his hand. He nodded. "Lead the way." Katie tucked Tank back into the tote bag and slung it over her shoulder. They left the stadium and walked 3 blocks down the pavement. The wind whipped at Katie's gray pullover. Zayn seemed unaffected by the cold. They pushed through the glass door of The Grind. The small shop hummed with the noise of an espresso machine and the chatter of morning commuters. Katie stood in line. Zayn stood right behind her, acting as a human shield against the crowd. They reached the counter. 2 black drip coffees, Katie told the teenage barista. The barista rang up the order. "That makes $6. Before Katie could unzip her pocket, Zayn reached over her shoulder. He placed a crisp, flawless $100 bill on the counter. The barista stared at the bill, her eyes wide. She looked from the money to Zayn's tailored navy suit. "Keep the change," Zayn commanded. "If he hands out one more $100 bill for a burnt drip coffee, I will leave him on the sidewalk." "No," Katie snapped. She snatched the $100 bill off the counter and shoved it back into Zayn's chest. She dug into her jeans and pulled out a crumpled $10 bill. She handed it to the barista. "Give me the change, please." Zayn frowned. "The worker provided a service. I provided compensation." "You provided a heart attack," Katie corrected him. $6, not 100. The shop door chimed. Heavy boots thudded against the wooden floorboards. Katie turned around. A towering man stepped into the coffee shop. He wore a thick leather jacket and a smug grin. Kobe. He played defense for the league's board team, a rival alpha known for his brutal hits on the ice and his inherited wealth. Kobe spotted Zayn. His grin widened into a sneer. "Well, look at this," Kobe announced, his loud voice cutting through the shop's noise. "The Alpha King drinking mud water in a peasant shop. I heard rumors you bought the ice cats, Zayn. I did not realize you adopted their trashy lifestyle, too." Kobe's gaze shifted to Katie. He looked her up and down, noting the messy bun and the team pullover. He let out a harsh laugh. "And you brought a little beta pet to carry your bags." Zayn stepped in front of Katie. The air in the coffee shop vanished. A suffocating, dominant aura rolled off his broad shoulders. He did not raise his voice. He did not shout. He just stared at Kobe with cold, violent intent. "Step back," Zayn ordered, his tone flat. Kobe hesitated. The smug look faded. He took one step back, recognizing the true power of a king. Katie grabbed Zayn's forearm. She felt the rigid, coiled muscle beneath his suit sleeve. She pulled him toward the exit. She did not want a brawl in the middle of a coffee shop. "We are leaving," Katie said, holding her thermos tight. She dragged the billionaire out the door, leaving Kobe standing in silence. Chapter 7. Katie marched back to the stadium, her boots hitting the pavement with force. Zayn walked beside her in silence. The encounter with Kobe left a bitter taste in her mouth. She hated the arrogance of elite alphas. She hated the reminder of the social gap between a run-down minor league team and the wealthy board of directors. They entered the arena lobby. They stepped past turnstile number 4. The metal gear remained jammed. The stubborn bolt looked just as mocking as it had yesterday. Katie unlocked her office door with her scratched plastic keycard. She stepped inside and set her canvas tote bag on the chair. Tank poked his head out, demanding a treat. Katie ignored the kitten and dropped her thermos onto the desk. "Do not let Kobe bother you," Zayn said, standing in the doorway. "His pack holds minor influence. I will handle him." "I am fine," Katie said, grabbing a stack of spreadsheets. "I deal with arrogant players all the time. Let's start the inventory." Before Zayn could respond, heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. A man stormed toward Katie's office. He wore a stained jacket and a faded baseball cap. He carried a crumpled ticket stub in his fist. His face turned bright red with anger. He marched right past Zayn and stepped into the small office. "You!" the man shouted, pointing a thick finger right at Katie's face. "Are you the manager?" Katie took a step back, startled by the sudden intrusion. "Yes, I am the operations manager. How can I help you?" "You can refund my money," the fan yelled, taking another aggressive step forward. He leaned over her desk, invading her personal space. "You raised the season ticket prices. I read the email this morning. 30%. You greedy thieves." Katie put her hands up, trying to de-escalate the situation. She knew nothing about a price hike. "Sir, please step back. There must be a mistake. We have not changed the ticket prices." "Do not lie to me." The fan slammed his fist down on her desk, rattling the plastic pens. He leaned closer, spit flying from his lips. "I want my money." "No man steps within striking distance of my mate and walks away with his teeth intact." Zayn moved on pure instinct. He did not speak. He stepped into the office. He reached out and grabbed the edge of the heavy wooden door. His fingers dug into the solid wood. With one violent, effortless pull, Zayn yanked the door backward. The metal hinges shrieked. Screws ripped out of the doorframe. Wood splintered and cracked like a gunshot echoing through the stadium. Zayn tore the entire door off the wall. He tossed it aside. The heavy wood crashed onto the floor, shaking the ground. A cloud of drywall dust plumed into the air. The fan froze. The anger vanished from his face, replaced by pure terror. He stared at the broken door on the floor, then looked up at the towering Alpha King standing in the doorway. "Leave," Zayn commanded, his voice a low, terrifying rumble. The fan scrambled backward. He hit the doorframe, tripped over his own boots, and ran down the hallway without looking back. Desmond appeared seconds later. The beta wore his gray overcoat. He pushed his wire-rimmed glasses up his nose. He looked at the splintered doorframe. He looked at the heavy door resting on the floor. He let out a long, exhausted sigh. "I will handle the angry patron," Desmond said flatly. He turned and walked away. Katie stood frozen behind her desk. She looked at the dust settling in the air. She looked at Zayn, who stood perfectly still, his chest rising and falling. "He stepped too close," Zayn stated, defending his action. Katie looked down at the floor. A solid wooden barrier now blocked the entrance to her office. "You broke my door." "I removed a threat," Zayn corrected her. "Now I have no door," Katie said, picking up a blue pen and clicking it aggressive. "How am I supposed to run an office without a door?" Chapter 8. A cold draft blew down the stadium hallway. It swept right into Katie's office, chilling the room. Katie sat in her chair, wrapped tight in her gray pullover. She glared at the empty doorframe. The broken door remained on the floor. Splinters of wood dotted the cheap carpet. Every time someone walked past her office, they had to step over the massive slab of wood. Zayn stood near the filing cabinet. He watched her. He recognized her frustration. Katie reached for a stack of invoices. Her hand shook slightly. The stress of the morning weighed on her. A rival alpha insulted her. A fan screamed in her face. The billionaire king destroyed stadium property. Her desk sat covered in a chaotic mess of scattered highlighters, loose pens, and crumpled sticky notes. She let out a frustrated breath and dropped her face into her hands. Zayn stepped over the broken door. He moved toward her desk. He did not offer an apology. He did not know how to craft one. Instead, he looked at the mess on her workspace. He noticed her habit from the day before. He remembered how she organized items to calm her mind. Zayn reached out. He picked up a blue pen. He placed it on the left side of the desk. He picked up a black marker and set it next to the pen. He gathered the highlighters. With slow, deliberate movements, Zayn lined the writing utensils up in a perfect straight row. He organized them strictly by height. Katie raised her head. She watched his large hands, adorned with the heavy silver signet ring, carefully aligning a yellow highlighter next to a red pen. He destroys municipal property with his bare hands, then lines up my highlighters like a giant, terrifying neat freak. The sight broke the tension in her chest. A small, genuine smile touched her lips. Zayn finished the row. He stepped back and gave a single nod of satisfaction. It was a silent compromise, an offering of peace. "Thank you," Katie said softly. Footsteps approached the office. Winnie appeared in the doorway. The team publicist wore a bright yellow sweater. She carried a bright pink tablet in her hands. Winnie stopped and stared at the broken door blocking her path. "Did a bear attack the office?" Winnie asked, lifting one leg to step over the splintered wood. "Just an overprotective owner," Katie sighed. "What is wrong, Winnie? You look panicked." Winnie stepped into the room. She tapped the screen of her pink tablet and slid it across the organized desk. It bumped right into the perfectly aligned pens. "This is wrong," Winnie said, pointing at the screen. Katie leaned forward. Zayn stepped closer to read the screen over her shoulder. A popular territory gossip blog filled the display. A clear, high-resolution photograph sat right in the center of the page. The picture showed Katie and Zayn standing inside the Grind coffee shop. Zayn stood close to her, his hand reaching out, acting as a shield against Kobe. The image captured the intense, protective glare on his face. The headline above the photo sat in bold black letters. Billionaire King claims beta manager. Secret romance ruins league hierarchy? Katie felt the blood drain from her face. They posted this 10 minutes ago, Winnie said, tapping the edge of the tablet. The comments are a war zone. The elite packs are furious. They think you used your position to seduce the king and steal the franchise. I did not seduce anyone, Katie protested, standing up from her chair. The press does not care, Winnie warned. They are already gathering outside the stadium. 3 news vans just parked by the front gates. They want a statement. They want to know why the Alpha King bought a failing minor league team just to date an employee. Katie looked at Zayn. His jaw tightened. The media intrusion threatened her safety. Pack your bag, Zayn ordered, his tone shifting back to the commanding king. He reached into his suit jacket, checking for his car keys. We cannot stay here. Chapter 9. Katie stared at the bright pink tablet resting on her desk. The bold headline mocked her. Billionaire King claims beta manager. Panic gripped her chest. She looked at the perfect row of pens Zayn aligned moments ago. Her quiet, overworked life just shattered into a million public pieces. Outside the stadium walls, a low rumble built in the distance. The sound of heavy news vans rolling over the gravel parking lot vibrated through the floorboards. Winnie grabbed her pink tablet. She swiped the screen, her bright yellow sweater a stark contrast to the grim reality of the situation. 3 more vans just pulled up. They have cameras pointed at the front glass. They want a quote. I spent 3 years building my career here, and one coffee run with a billionaire turns me into a tabloid target. Zayn reached into his deep navy suit jacket. His fingers closed around the keys to his SUV. His jaw set into a hard line. He did not look panicked. He looked ready for war. We leave now, Zayn ordered. His voice left 0 room for argument. The press will twist your words. They will swarm you the second you step outside. You need a secure location. Katie did not fight him. She grabbed her stickered stainless steel thermos from the desk. She scooped her canvas tote bag off the chair. Tank sat inside, his oversized orange ears swiveling toward the noise outside. Katie shoved her scratched plastic master keycard into her jeans pocket, her fingers brushing against the crumpled $10 bill she saved from the coffee shop. I will lock the front gates, Winnie offered. I will tell them the manager took the day off. Go. Katie nodded a quick thanks. She turned and followed Zayn. They approached the doorway. The splintered wood of the heavy door still rested flat on the carpet. Katie lifted her boot, stepping over the broken barrier. The draft from the hallway hit her face. Zayn stepped over the wood right behind her, his broad shoulders acting as a shield. They bypassed the front lobby. The noise of shouting reporters echoed off the concrete walls, but they stayed out of sight. They walked down a narrow, dimly lit service corridor. It smelled of floor wax and old ice shavings. They reached the back exit near the dumpsters. Katie pushed the metal fire door open. The cold wind whipped her auburn bun. Her faded indigo hatchback sat parked in its usual spot. Just beyond it, idling next to the curb, sat Zayn's armored SUV. My car is right here. Katie pointed to the hatchback. Your car offers 0 security, Zayn stated. He grabbed her elbow, his grip firm but careful, and steered her toward the heavy SUV. They will recognize the plates. My vehicle possesses tinted glass and reinforced steel. Katie allowed him to guide her. They reached the SUV. Zayn pulled the heavy passenger door open. Katie climbed into the leather seat. She set her canvas tote bag on the floorboards between her boots. Tank let out a tiny, muffled squeak of protest. She placed her empty thermos in the cup holder. Zayn shut the door. The heavy thud cut off the noise of the wind and the distant reporters. He walked around the front grille and climbed into the driver's seat. He shifted the vehicle into gear. The engine purred, a deep, powerful sound. He steered the SUV out of the back lot, avoiding the chaotic mess of news vans blocking the main entrance. Katie slumped against the headrest. She pulled her gray pullover tighter around her torso. She watched the stadium fade in the rearview mirror. The media circus descended on her workplace, and she sat, trapped in a moving fortress with the man who caused the disaster. "Where are we going?" Katie asked. "My residence," Zayn answered, keeping his eyes on the road. "It offers absolute privacy. The security gates keep the press out. You will remain there until Desmond handles the tabloids." Katie closed her eyes. She needed to review budget spreadsheets. She needed to call a repairman for her office door. Instead, she rode shotgun with an Alpha King toward a billionaire's hideout. Chapter 10. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Katie stepped out of the metal box and into Zayn's penthouse. Her boots sank into plush, dark gray carpet. She stopped and stared. Floor-to-ceiling windows lined the entire far wall, offering a sweeping view of the city skyline. The sky outside hung gray and heavy. The penthouse felt huge. It also felt completely dead. Sharp edges defined the space. A sleek glass coffee table sat in the center of the living room, flanked by stiff, modern leather sofas. No pictures hung on the walls. No throw blankets rested on the furniture. The entire floor lacked a single trace of warmth or human comfort. Zayn stepped out of the elevator behind her. He unbuttoned his navy suit jacket and walked toward a vast, polished granite kitchen island. "You can utilize any room," Zayn told her. He set his car keys on the counter. "The security protocols are active. No one will bother you." Katie set her canvas tote bag on the floor. Tank wasted zero time. The tiny orange tabby scrambled out of the bag. He hit the carpet and puffed his tail. He strutted across the sprawling living room, sniffing the expensive leather sofas. He approached the floor-to-ceiling windows, stared down at the tiny cars crawling through the city streets below, and let out a fearless hiss at the glass. Katie set her stickered thermos next to Zayn's keys. The bright, peeling stickers looked ridiculous against the flawless granite. "Do you actually live here?" Katie asked, looking around the sterile kitchen. "It looks like a furniture showroom. Where is your stuff?" "I own property," Zayn said, adjusting his dark silver tie. "I do not collect clutter." Katie's stomach let out a loud, traitorous growl. The stress of the morning burned through her coffee. She skipped breakfast. The thought of food consumed her focus. "Do you have a kitchen, or just a display model?" Katie asked. Zayn gestured to the giant double-door refrigerator. Katie walked over and pulled the stainless steel handle. Cold air washed over her face. She stared at the shelves. Bottled spring water lined the top row. A few sealed containers of high-end protein sat on the bottom. No leftover pizza. No condiments. Katie sighed. She opened a heavy pantry door. A loaf of artisan sourdough bread sat on a shelf. She checked a drawer and found a block of sharp cheddar cheese and a stick of butter. "I am making lunch," Katie announced. She grabbed a heavy cast-iron skillet from a hook. She turned a dial on the sprawling gas stove. Blue flames flared to life beneath the metal pan. Zayn stood on the opposite side of the island. He rested his hands on the granite. His heavy silver signet ring tapped a slow rhythm against the stone. She stands in a multi-million-dollar estate, wearing a faded gray pullover, and cooks cheese on a stove. Yet she owns the entire room. Katie ignored his stare. She sliced the bread. She cut thick slices of the cheddar. She dropped a pat of butter into the hot skillet. It sizzled and popped, sending the rich scent of melting fat into the sterile air. She placed the sandwich into the pan. The domestic sound of cooking transformed the cold kitchen. Zayn watched her flip the bread. The golden brown crust cracked under her spatula. She moved with practical efficiency. The women he knew demanded private chefs. They requested obscure diets. Katie made a grilled cheese sandwich and looked perfectly content. She slid the sandwich onto a ceramic plate. She walked around the island and set the plate right in front of him. "Eat," Katie ordered. "You broke a solid wood door today. You need calories." Zayn looked at the greasy melted cheese oozing from the bread.
He picked up the sandwich. He took a bite.
The simple, heavy flavors flooded his mouth. It tasted better than the luxury catering he ordered for the stadium. Katie made a second sandwich for herself. She leaned against the cold granite counter, chewing her food, watching Tank wage war against his own reflection in the window glass. For a brief moment, the chaos outside did not matter. Chapter 11. Katie wiped crumbs from her jeans. She finished her sandwich and set the plate by the sink. The penthouse remained quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft thuds of Tank chasing imaginary prey across the carpet. Zayn swallowed the last bite of his food. He pulled a pristine white cloth from a drawer and wiped his hands. He leaned his forearms against the granite island, his gaze locking onto her. "The gossip log presents a tactical problem," Zayn stated, breaking the comfortable silence. "The elite packs believe you manipulated me for control of the League. If we remain in hiding, they will assume guilt. They will attack your reputation." Katie crossed her arms. Her fingers dug into the fabric of her gray pullover. "I have no reputation with elite packs. I manage a minor league team. I just want to go back to work." "You cannot," Zayn countered. He stood straight. "The board of directors holds power. They will use this scandal to vote you out of your management position. We must control the narrative." "How?" Katie asked, her voice tight. "I do not own a PR firm." "Tonight, the territory hosts the annual High Society Gala," Zayn explained. "Every influential alpha and pack leader attends. I require a date. You will attend the event on my arm." Katie let out a harsh laugh. "You want me to walk into a room full of snobs who already hate me? They will eat me alive. They will see the Alpha King standing beside you." Zayn corrected her. "They will understand that you belong with me. The rumors of manipulation will die when they see our united front." Katie shook her head. She paced away from the island, her boots sinking into the carpet. She thought about the flashing cameras. She thought about the judgmental stares from women dripping in diamonds. She belonged in a cold ice rink, not a ballroom. She turned back to face him. Her mind shifted to the crumpled $10 bill in her pocket. She thought about her bank account. She thought about Ellie. If I have to play the role of a billionaire's toy for one night, I am making the devil pay my family's debts. "A fake date," Katie clarified. "I put on a dress, I smile for the cameras, and I pretend to like your rich friends." "Correct," Zayn agreed. "I want a trade," Katie demanded. She marched back to the island, planting her hands flat on the granite. She looked right into his eyes. "My sister Ellie. She starts her second year of culinary school next month. The tuition bill sits on my desk right now. If I walk into that ballroom and face those wolves, you fund her tuition. Every single penny." Zayn did not blink. He did not ask for a number. He reached into his inner suit jacket. He pulled out the matte black premium credit card. He slapped the plastic down onto the granite counter between them. "Done," Zayn said. The transaction meant nothing to his empire. "Provide the billing details to Desmond. The debt is clear." Katie stared at the black card. A massive weight vanished from her shoulders. Ellie's future was secure. No more late nights agonizing over spreadsheets to find extra cash. The relief hit her like a punch to the gut. "You did not even ask the total," Katie whispered, her anger softening into shock. "I do not care about the total," Zayn replied, his voice a low rumble. "I care about securing your presence tomorrow night. You drive a hard bargain, Beta." Katie picked up the black card. It felt heavy in her fingers. She slid it toward her stickered thermos. "Fine. We have a deal. I will be your date. But I do not own a ball gown. My best dress is a cotton sundress I wore to a summer barbecue." Zayn pulled his platinum pocket watch from his vest. He checked the dial, a habit he performed when finalizing a schedule. "Desmond returns in 1 hour," Zayn said. "He brings a stylist. We will prepare you for the gala." Chapter 12. The penthouse elevator chimed. Desmond stepped onto the gray carpet. He wore his standard gray overcoat, his wire-rimmed glasses catching the overhead lights. He looked exhausted. Behind him walked a tall, sharp-featured man holding a silver clothing rack on wheels. "Katie," Desmond announced, his tone flat. "Meet Leo. He will handle your attire for the gala." Leo pushed the heavy metal rack into the center of the living room. Plastic covers rustled. A dozen different gowns hung from velvet hangers. The dresses glittered under the lights. Katie stood up from the leather sofa. She pulled her messy auburn bun tighter. Tank trotted over to the rack. The orange kitten swatted a paw at a long piece of sheer tulle hanging near the floor. "Let us see the canvas," Leo said, looking Katie up and down. He grimaced at her gray team pullover and dark wash jeans. "We require a miracle. We need impact. We need sequins." Leo grabbed a hanger. He pulled out a massive, heavy gown covered in silver sequins and stiff white feathers. He held it against Katie's chest. The dress felt like armor. "No," Katie said, stepping back. "I am not wearing a dead bird." Zayn sat in a leather armchair near the window. He wore a fresh black dress shirt, the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, exposing thick forearms. He watched the fitting in silence. He trusted Leo to craft the proper image. Leo tossed the silver dress onto the sofa. He pulled out a bright crimson gown with a plunging neckline and a train that dragged on the floor. "Too much fabric." Katie rejected it immediately. "Someone will step on it. I will trip. Give me something practical." "Practical?" Leo gasped, clutching his chest. "You attend the high society gala on the arm of the king. We do not do practical." Katie marched over to the rack. She shoved the heavy silks and flashy sequins aside. Her hand brushed against a soft, simple fabric. She pulled the hanger out. The dress offered zero flash. It held no sequins. It lacked feathers. It was a simple, flowing gown made of a deep midnight blue material. The fabric draped beautifully. It featured a modest neckline and a slit up one leg for easy movement. "This one," Katie declared. Leo sighed, shaking his head at the lack of drama. "It is understated, but the color suits your hair. Try it on in the guest room." Katie took the hanger. She walked down the hall and entered a spacious guest bedroom. She stripped off her jeans and the familiar gray pullover. She slipped the midnight blue dress over her head. The fabric felt like water against her skin. It fit perfectly, hugging her curves without restricting her breath. She let her auburn hair down from the messy bun. The long strands fell over her bare shoulders. She stepped back into the hallway. Katie walked into the living room. Leo clapped his hands together. "Acceptable. Very acceptable." Desmond offered a rare, approving nod. Zayn stood up from the leather armchair. His movement stopped dead. The sharp scent of crushed blackberries filled the room. Zayn stared at the woman standing in the center of his sterile penthouse. The simple, midnight blue fabric contrasted with her pale skin. Without the baggy pullover hiding her frame, she looked striking. She looked powerful. She looked like a queen. I brought her here to play a role, but she commands the room without trying. The mate bond surged in his blood. A primal, possessive growl vibrated deep in his chest. His alpha control fractured. Katie heard the low growl. She looked at Zayn. His dark eyes locked onto hers, burning with intense heat. The air in the room grew heavy. "Is the dress wrong?" Katie asked, breaking the tension. Zayn swallowed hard. He forced his wolf back under control. He stepped forward, his gaze never leaving her face. "The dress," Zayn said, his voice a rough whisper, "is perfect." Chapter 13. The SUV slowed to a halt outside the Grand Solstice Hotel. Flashing lights from 100 cameras pierced the tinted windows. Paparazzi crowded the velvet ropes, shouting names and demanding attention. Katie sat in the leather back seat. She smoothed the skirt of her midnight blue dress. Her bare shoulders felt cold. She missed her baggy gray pullover. She left her canvas tote bag, her stickered thermos, and tank back in the quiet safety of Zayn's penthouse. She brought nothing with her except the clothes on her back and the silver heels Leo forced her to wear. Zayn sat beside her. He wore his tailored black suit jacket over his dress shirt. He adjusted the cuffs of his sleeves. His platinum pocket watch rested secure in his vest. His heavy silver signet ring caught the streetlights leaking through the glass. "Stay close to my side," Zayn instructed. He did not ask. He gave a command. "I do not know these people," Katie said, staring at the flashing lights. "They want a scandal. They want the beta manager who stole the billionaire king." "They will see my mate," Zayn corrected. "They will show respect." Desmond opened the driver's side door. The beta wore his standard gray overcoat. He pushed his wire-rimmed glasses up his nose and walked around the front grille to open Zayn's door. The noise of the crowd rushed into the quiet vehicle. Zayn stepped out. The cameras flared brighter. He turned and offered his hand. Katie took a breath. She placed her fingers in his palm. Zayn pulled her out of the SUV and tucked her hand into the crook of his arm. They walked up the red carpet. Reporters screamed questions about the hockey league purchase. Zayn ignored the noise. He kept his posture rigid and guided Katie through the grand double doors. The hotel ballroom dazzled with crystal chandeliers and gold trim. Elite wolves filled the space. Welcome wore silk gowns that dragged on the polished marble floor. Men wore velvet tuxedos. A string quartet played music in the corner. The room buzzed with polite, fake conversation. Waiters carried silver trays stacked with crystal glasses. The moment Zayn and Katie stepped inside, the chatter died. Every head turned. Hundreds of eyes locked onto the king and the unknown beta on his arm. The silence felt suffocating. Katie kept her chin up. She refused to cower. She managed rowdy hockey players for a living. She could handle a room full of rich snobs. She tightened her grip on Zayn's arm. A woman in a tight emerald gown detached from the crowd. She held a crystal champagne flute in her right hand. She glided toward them, a mocking smile on her lips. "Zayn," the woman purred. She stopped 2 feet away. She looked Katie up and down, her gaze lingering on the simple midnight blue fabric. "You brought a +1. We expected you to arrive alone. I did not realize the stadium maintenance staff received invitations this year." A few guests nearby snickered. Katie felt her face heat up. The insult hit its mark. These people wear thousands of dollars on their wrists, yet they act like high school bullies. Zayn did not smile. His jaw locked. A low, vibrating growl echoed from his chest. The sound carried across the marble floor. The snickering stopped at once. The woman with the champagne flute took a quick step back, her mocking smile vanishing. "You speak to my guest," Zayn stated, his voice a dangerous rumble. You will address her with the same respect you show the crown." "I meant no offense," the woman stammered, her hands shaking. Champagne sloshed over the rim of her glass and dripped onto the floor. "Your words hold poison," Zayn told her. He used the quiet, terrifying tone of a predator. "Katie runs the Silver Ridge Ice Cats. She holds a mind sharper than anyone in this room. If you insult her again, you will find your pack banished from this territory." The woman turned pale. She bowed her head, spun around on her silver heels, and hurried back into the crowd. The ballroom remained silent. The message landed loud and clear. No one would cross the beta in the midnight blue dress. Zayn turned to Katie. The anger in his eyes faded the moment he looked at her. "Are you unharmed?" "I am fine," Katie whispered, her heart beating fast. "You did not need to threaten her pack over a bad joke." "I protect what is mine," Zayn answered. He placed a hand on the small of her back. The heat of his palm soaked through the thin fabric of her dress. He guided her toward a quiet corner of the room, away from the staring eyes. Katie walked beside him, realizing the Alpha King did not care about high society rules. He only cared about her comfort. Chapter 14. The ballroom air grew thick and warm. The stench of expensive perfumes and roasted meats clashed in the enclosed space. Katie felt a headache building behind her eyes. She tugged on the sleeve of Zayn's black suit jacket. "I need air," Katie said over the noise of the string quartet. Zayn nodded. He placed a hand on her waist and steered her through the crowd. They reached a set of heavy glass doors. Zayn pushed them open. They stepped out onto a wide, private balcony. The cold night air rushed over them, washing away the stuffy heat of the ballroom. A thick glass railing ran along the edge, offering a clear view of the city skyline below. Streetlights glowed like scattered stars across the concrete grid. Katie walked to the railing. She rested her hands on the cold glass. She let out a long breath, watching her breath form a white cloud in the chilly air. She shivered. The midnight blue dress offered zero protection against the wind. Zayn moved up behind her. He unbuttoned his black suit jacket. He pulled it off his shoulders and draped it over Katie's back. The heavy fabric blocked the wind. The heat of his body soaked into her skin. "Thank you," Katie murmured, pulling the lapels tighter around her chest. Zayn stood next to her, resting his forearms on the glass railing. He wore only his black dress shirt and dark trousers now. The wind ruffled his dark hair. "You hate these events," Katie noted, looking at his rigid posture. "I despise them," Zayn agreed. He stared out at the city. "The people in that room do not see a man. They see a bank account. They see a crown. They smile at my face and plot ways to steal my assets the moment I turn my back." Katie turned her head to study his profile. The harsh neon lights from a distant billboard illuminated his sharp jawline. He looked invincible to the world, but right now, he just looked tired. "Is that why you act so reckless with your money?" Katie asked. "Buying hockey teams, dropping black credit cards on counters. You want to prove the money means nothing to you." Zayn shifted his gaze to her. His dark eyes searched her face. "My wealth isolates me. People fear it or they crave it. But you rejected it. You told me I sat out of your league because I possessed too much." "I said that because my life is a mess," Katie admitted, looking down at her silver heels. "I spend every hour trying to keep my head above water. My sister Ellie needs that tuition money. I need to keep the stadium running. If I fail, my family suffers. I do not have room in my life for a billionaire who breaks doors and buys leagues on a whim. She carries the weight of the world on her shoulders, and she refuses to let me help her carry the load." Zayn turned his body toward her. He reached out. His large hand cupped her cheek. His thumb brushed over her cheekbone. "You do not have to fight the current alone," Zayn said, his voice a rough whisper. "I broke your door because a man threatened you. I bought the league because I needed a reason to stay near you. I do not want a woman who bows to my crown. I want the woman who yells at me over cheap pizza." Katie felt her breath catch in her throat. The distance between them vanished. The mate bond hummed in the air, pulling them together like magnets. Zayn lowered his head. He gave her time to step away. He offered her a choice. Katie did not step back. She closed her eyes and tilted her chin up. Their lips met. The kiss started slow. It felt warm and anchoring. Zayn wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her flush against his chest. Katie reached up, her hands tangling in his dark hair. The noise of the city faded into the background. The stress of the paparazzi, the snobby elite wolves, and the broken stadium turnstiles melted away. For the first time since they met, they stopped fighting. They stood on the balcony above the world, sharing a moment of pure, uninterrupted peace. Chapter 15. Katie woke up to the sound of Tank purring. The tiny orange tabby kitten sat on her chest, vibrating like a broken motor. She opened her eyes and blinked at the bright sunlight streaming through the guest room window. She lay on a huge, soft mattress. She wore the oversized gray pullover she discarded the night before, paired with a pair of cotton shorts she found in a drawer. The midnight blue dress hung on a hanger hooked to the closet door. The memories of the balcony kiss rushed into her mind. Her face flushed with heat. Katie sat up and gently nudged Tank off her chest. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. Her feet hit the carpet. She walked out of the guest room and padded down the hallway toward the kitchen. Zayn stood by the granite island. He wore fresh dark trousers and a crisp white dress shirt. He held a glass of water. Desmond stood next to him. The beta wore his gray overcoat. Desmond held a black television remote in his hand. The large flat-screen TV mounted on the living room wall played a local news broadcast. Both men turned their heads as Katie entered the room. The air felt wrong. The quiet peace from the balcony was gone. Zayn radiated a dark, suffocating tension. His jaw clenched tight. The muscles in his forearms strained against the rolled-up sleeves of his shirt. "What happened?" Katie asked, stopping near the edge of the island. Desmond pushed his wire-rimmed glasses up his nose. He pointed the remote at the TV and unmuted the volume. The news anchor's voice filled the penthouse. A photograph appeared on the screen. Katie felt the blood drain from her face. The picture showed her faded indigo hatchback. It sat parked in its usual spot near the stadium dumpsters. However, the car looked destroyed. The tires were slashed flat against the asphalt. Bright red spray paint covered the windshield and the side doors, spelling out the words, "Beta Trash." "The paparazzi located your vehicle early this morning," Desmond reported, his voice flat and professional. "A group of radical elite supporters broke past the stadium security gate. They vandalized the car. The police are on the scene." Katie stared at the screen. Her car was ruined. She needed that car to buy groceries. She needed it to drive to the stadium. The malice of the attack made her stomach twist. They destroyed her property just because she attended a party with a billionaire. Zayn slammed his glass down onto the granite counter. The sharp crack echoed through the kitchen. His anger burns hotter than a furnace, and I am standing too close to the flames. "Desmond," Zayn growled, his voice dropping into a terrifying animalistic register. "Find the names of the individuals responsible. Pull the security footage from the stadium. Contact the precinct captain. I want them ruined. I want their bank accounts frozen. I want their packs driven out of the territory by nightfall." Katie took a step back. The sheer violence in his voice frightened her. He did not sound like a man angry over a broken car window. He sounded like a king preparing to wage a ruthless war. "Zayn, stop," Katie said, her voice shaking. "It is just a car. My insurance will cover the tires." "They targeted you," Zayn snapped, turning his burning gaze toward her. "They touched what belongs to me. They will pay for the transgression." "You cannot banish people over a prank," Katie argued. She gripped the edge of the granite counter. "This is exactly what I meant. Everything around you operates in extremes. You break doors, you buy leagues. Now you want to destroy lives over spray paint? I enforce respect," Zayn stated, stepping toward her. Katie grabbed her canvas tote bag off the floor. She scooped Tank up and dropped the confused kitten into the bag. The sudden movement made Zayn stop in his tracks. "You enforce terror," Katie corrected him, tears of frustration stinging her eyes. She reached across the counter and grabbed her stickered stainless steel thermos. "I cannot live like this. The cameras, the snobs, the constant threat of someone slashing my tires. The gap between us is too wide." Chapter 16. Katie marched into the guest bedroom. She stripped off the soft cotton shorts and pulled on her dark-washed jeans. She shoved her feet into her scuffed boots. She walked back into the kitchen, her canvas tote bag slung over her shoulder. Zayn stood frozen by the granite island. He watched her prepare to run. The heavy silver signet ring on his finger caught the morning sunlight. Katie paused near the edge of the granite island. There sat Zayn's matte black premium credit card. She promised to take it for Ellie's tuition. She stared at the plastic rectangle. Guilt twisted in her chest, but she needed the funds. Her sister's future depended on it. She snatched the black card off the granite and shoved it deep into her jeans pocket, next to her scratched plastic keycard. "I am going back to the stadium," Katie announced, her voice tight. "I need to speak with the police about my car. Do not follow me." Zayn did not argue. He did not block her path. He saw the genuine fear in her eyes. His extreme reaction over the vandalized car pushed her away. He stepped aside, giving her a clear path to the elevator. "Desmond will drive you," Zayn ordered, his tone flat. "The streets remain unsafe for a beta traveling alone." Katie nodded once. She did not have the energy to fight him on the ride. She walked past the billionaire king, stepped into the elevator, and waited for the metal doors to slide shut. Desmond followed her inside, his face an unreadable mask. The doors closed. The penthouse fell into silence. Zayn stood alone in the empty, sterile living room. He looked at the empty space where her canvas tote bag used to sit. The kitchen felt cold again. "She runs from the chaos, but I will tear the earth apart to build her a safe harbor." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He dialed a private number. Desmond answered on the second ring from the confines of the SUV.
"Are you transporting her safely?" Zayn asked. "We are 10 minutes from the stadium," Desmond replied over the speaker. "The police have secured the parking lot. The paparazzi are cleared out."
"Good," Zayn said. He turned and walked toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. He looked down at the city.
"Run a full background check on her. I need all available data. She handles stress like a soldier, yet she panics when I offer protection. I need to understand her roots." "Understood," Desmond said.
The line clicked dead. Zayn waited by the glass. 30 minutes later, his phone vibrated with an incoming encrypted file. He opened the document. Desmond compiled a comprehensive report on Katie's history. Zayn scrolled past her employment records at the Silver Ridge Ice Cats. He skipped past Ellie's culinary school enrollment. He stopped at her birthplace. The file listed her origin, Rust Creek Pack. Zayn frowned. The name sounded familiar but obscure. He tapped the screen to access the pack details. Images flooded his phone. He stared at photographs of a dilapidated territory near the northern border.
The pack house featured rotting wood and a sagging roof. The financial records showed extreme poverty. The pack lived in squalor, forgotten by the wealthy Central Territories. A note attached by Desmond highlighted a specific banking pattern. Every 2 weeks, Katie deposited 80% of her stadium paycheck into an account managed by the Rust Creek Pack elder. She lived on pennies in Silver Ridge, so her original pack could afford basic food supplies and firewood. Zayn read the data twice. The realization hit him with force. Katie rejected his expensive catering. She yelled at him for tipping a $100 bill. She refused to wear a flashy sequin dress. She did not act stubborn just to annoy him. She acted out of survival. She knew the value of $1 because her people froze without it. Zayn locked his phone screen. He looked around his multi-million-dollar penthouse, filled with unused rooms and imported granite. He spent more cash on a single suit than her entire pack saw in a year. He understood her fear now. He understood the huge gap she saw between them. He gripped the phone tight in his hand. He was the Alpha King. He ruled the territory. And he was going to fix Rust Creek. Chapter 17. The stadium sat dark and quiet. Midnight approached. Katie sat at her desk, staring at the insurance paperwork for her ruined indigo hatchback. The cold draft from the hallway blew into the room. The splintered wooden door remained flat on the carpet, an obstacle she stepped over for the 10th time that night. Tank slept inside the canvas tote bag resting near her scuffed boots. Katie grabbed the stack of papers. She needed the owner's signature for the property damage report. She grabbed her scratched plastic master key card, leaving the sleeping kitten behind. She stepped over the broken door and walked down the shadowed corridor. She bypassed the jammed turnstile number 4. She took the stairs to the luxury owner's box. She swiped her key card. The glass doors slid open. The box sat completely empty. Katie walked to the mahogany bar to leave the papers. A thick, leather-bound folder sat open on the wood. The bold heading caught her eye. Rust Creek Relief Logistics. Katie frowned. She stepped closer and read the pages. The documents detailed a convoy of transport trucks. The manifests listed commercial-grade furnaces, insulated winter jackets, raw lumber, and pallets of high-protein food. The destination address belonged to her old pack house. A final invoice at the bottom bore a red stamp, paid in full. Does he think he can just buy my pride and erase my past with a wave of his checkbook? Her chest tightened. Anger mixed with a strange, suffocating gratitude. She hated feeling like a charity case. She worked her entire life to provide for her family. Now, a billionaire erased her struggle in a single afternoon. Katie spun around and left the luxury box. She needed to move. She needed the cold. She marched back down to her office. She opened the bottom drawer of her filing cabinet. She pulled out a pair of old, scuffed hockey skates. Thick tape held the left heel together. She carried them down the tunnel and pushed through the barrier doors. The main ice rink stretched out before her, a flawless sheet of frozen white under the dim security lights. Katie sat on the team bench. She stripped off her scuffed boots and shoved her feet into the rigid skates. She tied the laces tight. She grabbed a spare hockey stick resting against the glass. She stepped onto the ice. The cold air bit at her cheeks. She wore her gray team pullover and dark wash jeans, off the boards. She glided, the metal blades carved into the fresh ice, sending up a spray of frost. She moved fast, channeling her frustration into her legs. The rhythm of the skates grounded her. The stadium echoed with the sharp scrape of metal against ice. She skated hard, completing 3 laps around the perimeter. The burn in her thighs felt good. It felt real. She did not hear the barrier doors open. Your stride lacks balance. Katie skated to a harsh stop. Ice sprayed in a white arc. She turned toward the sound.
Zayn stood near the team bench. He wore his dark trousers and a crisp white dress shirt, the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. The heavy silver signet ring gleamed on his hand. He stepped through the open gate. He did not wear skates. He wore his polished leather dress shoes. He stepped onto the ice. "Get off the rink," Katie warned, gripping her stick. "You will break your neck."
"I came to find you," Zayn stated.
He took a slow, measured step forward. The leather soles offered zero traction. "Desmond informed me you stayed late." "I found your logistics folder," Katie countered. She pointed the curved blade of her stick at him. "The trucks, the furnaces. I told you I did not want your money. I have your black credit card in my pocket for Ellie's tuition. That was our deal. You overstepped."
"You rejected my money for yourself,"
Zayn corrected, taking another precarious step.
"I purchased supplies for a freezing pack."
"You do not hold the authority to reject winter heat on their behalf." Katie glared at him. The logic trapped her. He used her own practical nature against her. "You think you can fix everything with cash," Katie said, her voice echoing in the empty arena.
"I fix what is broken,"
Zayn replied. He kept his eyes locked on hers.
"Your pack requires heat. I provided heat. Your pride will not keep children warm during a blizzard."
Katie dropped her stick to her side. The truth of his words hit hard. He bypassed her defenses. He saw the reality of her struggle and offered a real solution. Chapter 18. Katie stared at the Alpha King standing on the frozen surface. He looked out of place. His expensive clothes and rigid posture belonged in a corporate tower, not a minor league hockey rink. "You win," Katie conceded, her breath forming white clouds in the freezing air. "Rust Creek needs the furnaces. I accept the help, but you still need to get off the ice before you fall and sue my stadium." Zayn ignored the warning. He looked down at the black rubber puck resting near her skate.
"I propose a wager,"
Zayn said. He took another step forward. His leather shoe slid an inch, but he caught his balance.
"If I take the puck from you, you stop fighting my presence in your life. You accept the mate bond."
Katie let out a sharp laugh. "And if you fail?"
"If I fail, I return to my penthouse,"
Zayn replied.
"I leave you in peace to manage your arena."
Katie tapped her stick against the ice. The sound cracked like a whip. She looked at the billionaire. He possessed extreme strength and dominant speed. On solid ground, he could overpower her in a second. But they stood on her territory now. "Deal," Katie said, a competitive fire burning in her chest. Zayn lunged forward. He relied on brute alpha speed, his muscles coiled, propelling him toward her. It was a terrible mistake. His leather soles hit the slick surface. Friction vanished. His feet flew out from under him. The Alpha King, ruler of the territory and CEO of a global empire, crashed hard onto his back. He hit the ice with a heavy thud, sliding 10 feet across the rink like a discarded stone. Katie erupted into laughter. She bent over, resting her hands on her knees. The sound echoed through the stadium, bright and unfiltered. The physical comedy of the moment shattered the tension between them. "She commands this frozen arena with more grace than I command my entire kingdom." Zayn lay flat on his back, staring up at the stadium rafters. The freezing surface seeped through his white dress shirt. He felt the cold shock in his spine. He listened to her laughter. It lacked fear. It lacked the defensive edge she always carried. He let out a low chuckle. The sound rumbled in his chest, vibrating against the ice. He pushed himself up into a sitting position. Katie skated toward him. She stopped a foot away, raining a dusting of shaved ice over his dark trousers. She looked down at him, a wide smile breaking across her face. "Do you yield?" Katie asked, tapping her stick against his expensive shoe. I yield, Zayn admitted. He reached out and grabbed the shaft of her hockey stick. Help me up. Katie planted her skates. She grabbed the stick with both hands and pulled. Zayn used her leverage to haul his large frame off the ice. He gained his footing, standing close to her. He did not let go of the stick. He pulled it, dragging her forward. The metal blades on her skates glided. She slid right into his chest. Zayn dropped the stick. It clattered to the ice. He wrapped his arms around her waist, anchoring her against him. His body radiated heat, a stark contrast to the freezing air surrounding them. Katie grabbed his shoulders to steady herself. Her hands pressed into the crisp fabric of his white shirt. The laughter faded. The playful energy shifted into a thick, magnetic pull. Zayn looked down into her eyes. The stadium lights reflected in her pupils. He saw no fear. He saw acceptance. "You lost the bet," Katie whispered, a shiver running down her spine from the cold and the proximity. "You have to leave." "I lied," Zayn murmured. He lowered his head and captured her lips. The kiss held a desperate, raw edge. The cold air stung their cheeks, but the heat between them burned. Katie kissed him back, letting go of the anger, the stress, and the fear of his wealth. She tangled her fingers in his dark hair. Zayn held her tight, keeping them both balanced on the treacherous surface. The mate bond flared, wrapping around their souls, demanding completion. But Zayn kept his control. He pulled back, resting his forehead against hers. "I am not leaving," Zayn promised, his breath warm against her skin. Chapter 19. The next morning brought a fresh wave of chaos to the Silver Ridge Stadium. Katie marched down the hallway toward the executive boardroom. She wore her gray team pullover and dark-wash jeans. Her auburn hair sat in a tight, practical bun. Her scratched plastic keycard hung from her blue lanyard, bouncing against her chest. Inside her jeans pocket, Zayn's matte black credit card felt like a heavy stone. She reached the boardroom. The heavy oak doors stood wide open. Inside, the league's board of directors sat around a long, polished table. 6 wealthy alphas occupied the leather chairs. They wore tailored suits and smug expressions. Kobe sat at the far end, his thick leather jacket resting over the back of his chair. Jesse, another brutal defenseman from the rival team, sat next to him. Katie stepped into the room. The men stopped talking and stared at her. "You requested my presence," Katie said, pulling out a chair at the opposite end of the table. She sat down, keeping her posture rigid. Kobe leaned forward, resting his elbows on the wood. "We did, Beta. We hold a vote today regarding the upcoming Charity Cup tournament." "The Ice Cats earned their spot in the tournament," Katie stated. "Our record holds strong." "Your record holds 0 weight," Jesse sneered. He tossed a thick rulebook onto the center of the table. "Section 4, Paragraph 2. A franchise must operate under the guidance of an approved management tier to participate in sanctioned tournaments." Katie frowned. "I am the operations manager. I hold the proper credentials." Kobe let out a harsh laugh. "You hold a clipboard and a team jacket. The board refuses to recognize a beta as a legitimate franchise head. We vote to expel the Silver Ridge Ice Cats from the Charity Cup, effective today. These arrogant men manufacture rules to punish a woman who refuses to shrink in their presence. You cannot expel us over a fabricated technicality," Katie argued, her voice rising. "My team trained for 6 months. We play by the rules." "The board makes the rules," Kobe countered, his eyes flashing with alpha dominance. "And we do not want trash polluting our ice. Your team is out." Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. The sound carried a heavy, deliberate rhythm.
the boardroom fell silent. The alphas shifted in their chairs, a sudden tension gripping the room. Zayn stepped through the doorway. He wore a sharp, slate-blue suit and a silver tie.
His heavy silver signet ring caught the fluorescent lights. He did not look like a man who spent the previous night slipping on an ice rink. He looked like the Alpha King, ready to deliver a brutal execution. Desmond walked a step behind him, carrying a thin leather briefcase. The beta pushed his wire-rimmed glasses up his nose and surveyed the room with cold efficiency. Zayn walked straight to the head of the table. He did not sit. He placed his large hands flat on the polished wood and leaned forward. The suffocating weight of his aura crashed over the board members. Kobe shrank back in his chair. Jesse averted his eyes. "You hold a vote regarding my franchise," Zayn stated. His voice sounded calm, yet it carried a lethal edge. "Your Highness," Kobe stammered, his previous arrogance vanishing. "We enforce the League's standards. The beta lacks the proper tier status to manage—" "Silence," Zayn commanded. The word echoed like a gunshot. Kobe snapped his mouth shut. "I own this league," Zayn reminded them. "I own this stadium. I own the ice you skate on. The Silver Ridge Ice Cats will participate in the Charity Cup." "Sir," Jesse spoke up, a tremor shaking his voice. "The public backlash. The elite packs question the integrity of the tournament if we ignore the rulebook." Zayn stood straight. He looked at the cowardly men sitting around the table. They used bureaucracy to hide their prejudice. They wanted to humiliate his mate. He would not allow it. "Then let us settle the matter in public," Zayn said, turning his gaze to Kobe. "You doubt the integrity of the team. You doubt the capability of my manager. We will resolve this on the ice." Katie watched Zayn. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She knew that tone. He prepared to do something extreme. He prepared to risk a vital asset to prove a point. "Call the press into the room," Zayn ordered Desmond. "We will broadcast the terms of a new agreement." Chapter 20. 10 minutes later, chaos consumed the boardroom. Desmond opened the doors, allowing a swarm of sports network reporters and camera crews to flood the room. Flashing bulbs illuminated the tense faces of the board members. Microphones clustered in the center of the long table. Katie stood against the far wall, her hands tucked into the pockets of her dark-washed jeans. She felt the outline of the black credit card against her palm. She watched the spectacle unfold. Zayn stood at the head of the table, commanding the room with effortless power. He faced the camera lenses. Kobe and Jesse sat rigid in their chairs, trapped by the sudden media ambush. "The League's board of directors holds concerns regarding the Silver Ridge Ice Cats," Zayn announced to the reporters. His voice projected clear and strong. "They question the leadership of the franchise. To settle this dispute, I propose a formal wager." The reporters silenced their chatter, hungry for the scoop. Zayn looked straight at Kobe. "The Charity Cup final is tomorrow. The Silver Ridge Ice Cats will play against the board's elite team in the championship match. If the elite team wins, I will surrender my entire sports empire. I will sign complete ownership of the league, the stadiums, and all franchise rights over to the board of directors." Gasps echoed through the room. The camera operator zoomed in on Zayn's face. Katie felt her stomach drop. He offered billions of dollars. He offered his legacy. He laid his entire corporate kingdom on the table over a hockey game. "I will risk my entire legacy to prove her worth to this wretched world." Kobe's eyes widened. Greed replaced his fear. The thought of inheriting the king's empire erased his logic. He looked at Jesse. The towering defenseman offered a frantic nod. "We accept the terms," Kobe declared, puffing out his chest for the cameras. "The board welcomes the challenge." "I have not finished," Zayn interrupted, his tone cutting through the excitement. He stepped away from the table,
and gestured toward Katie. The camera swiveled, focusing on the beta in the gray pullover. Katie kept her chin high, refusing to shy away from the lenses. "If the Silver Ridge Ice Cats win the charity cup," Zayn continued,
"the board of directors will fund the complete rebuilding of the Rust Creek Pack territory. You will cover the cost of new housing, commercial heating, medical facilities, and infrastructure. You will pay for it from your own personal bank accounts." The greed vanished from Kobe's face, replaced by pure shock. The cost of rebuilding an entire pack territory required a staggering sum of cash. It would drain their wealth. The reporters shouted questions, thrusting their microphones forward. The wager offered unprecedented drama. A billionaire king risking his empire for a rundown pack. "Do you accept?" Zayn demanded, his dark eyes boring into Kobe. Kobe looked at the cameras. He trapped himself. If he refused, he looked like a coward on live television. If he accepted, he risked bankruptcy. He swallowed hard and nodded. "We accept." Kobe forced the words out. Desmond stepped forward, opening his leather briefcase. He pulled out a stack of pre-drafted legal contracts. He slid the papers across the polished wood toward the board members. "Sign the documents," Desmond instructed, handing Kobe a heavy pen. Katie watched the men sign their names. Her hands shook inside her pockets. The pressure crushed her lungs. The fate of her old pack, the future of the Ice Cats, and Zayn's entire corporate empire now rested on the shoulders of her underdog team. Zayn turned away from the table. He walked through the crowd of reporters, ignoring their frantic questions. He reached Katie and stopped. "You wagered your empire," Katie whispered, her voice a faint sound over the noise of the room. "I wagered nothing," Zayn replied, a hint of a smile touching his lips. "I invested in a sure outcome. You run the best team in this territory. They will not lose." Katie looked at his sharp, confident features. He believed in her. He believed in her team. He risked everything to force the elite snobs to respect her. "You are crazy," Katie said, shaking her head. "We play tomorrow," Zayn stated. "Prepare your roster, manager." Chapter 21. The Silver Ridge Stadium buzzed with chaotic noise. Fans packed every available seat in the arena. They banged their hands against the safety glass and shouted team chants. The Charity Cup final drew a record crowd. The stakes of the game leaked to the public. Everyone knew the Alpha King wagered his corporate empire against the elite board of directors. Katie stood behind the team bench. She wore her staple gray pullover and dark wash jeans. Her auburn hair sat pulled back into a tight, practical bun. She chewed on her bottom lip. She touched her jeans pocket. The hard plastic of Zayn's black credit card pressed against her fingertips. "If we lose this game, my old pack freezes and Zayn loses his kingdom." An hour ago, she checked her office. The broken wooden door still lay flat on the carpet. Tank slept safe in his canvas tote bag on her chair. She bypassed the jammed turnstile number 4 and marched straight to the rink. The buzzer sounded. The first period began. The Ice Cats played smart. They lacked the towering height of the elite team, but they held strong teamwork. Steven, the team captain, won the first face-off. He passed the puck to Paul. Paul skated down the wing and fired a shot. The puck hit the net. The crowd erupted into cheers. Up in the luxury box, Zayn watched the ice. He wore a pristine charcoal suit and a dark crimson tie. Desmond stood beside him, holding the thin leather briefcase with the signed contracts. Zayn did not cheer. He calculated the odds. The game turned brutal in the second period. The elite team realized they could not outsmart the Ice Cats. They decided to outmuscle them instead. Kobe, the giant defenseman for the board, started throwing his weight around. He slammed Steven into the barrier. The referee ignored the hit. The elite alphas owned the league.
The officials feared them. Jesse,
another towering player for the elite squad, joined the attack. He checked the ice cats into the boards at every opportunity. The sound of bodies crashing against the safety glass echoed through the stadium. By the third period, the score sat tied at 2-2. The ice cats looked exhausted. Sweat soaked their jerseys. They breathed hard, fighting to keep up with the endless physical assault. Katie gripped the edge of the barrier. Her knuckles turned white. She watched Kobe point a thick finger at Paul. Kobe signaled Jesse. They planned a trap. Paul grabbed the puck near the center line. He looked toward the goal. He pushed his skates hard, building speed. He did not see Jesse skating up his blind side. Jesse lowered his shoulder. He did not aim for the puck. He aimed for Paul's knees. The impact sounded like a car crash. Jesse hit Paul with brutal force. Paul flew through the air. He crashed hard onto the frozen surface. His right skate caught the edge of a rut in the ice. His ankle twisted at a sharp, unnatural angle. A loud pop reached the team bench. Paul screamed. He clutched his leg, rolling on the cold ground in agony. The referee blew the whistle. Play stopped. Coach Brian climbed over the boards and ran across the slick surface toward his fallen player. Katie unlatched the bench gate. The paramedics rushed out with a stretcher. The crowd fell silent. The energy in the stadium vanished. Katie watched the medics load Paul onto the stretcher. His face looked pale. He gripped his twisted ankle. The injury looked severe. A werewolf needed 3 days and a splint to heal a broken bone. A deep sprain still required a full day of rest. Paul could not stand. He could not play. Kobe skated past the bench. He wore a smug grin. He tapped his stick against the ice, celebrating the dirty hit. Coach Brian returned to the bench. He slammed his fist against the plastic wall. He looked at his roster. He looked at the empty seat. "We do not have a backup forward." Coach Brian growled. "Paul with our last available skater. We are short a man." The referee skated over to the bench. He blew his whistle again. He pointed a finger at Coach Brian. "You need a full line on the ice," the referee stated. "Produce 5 skaters in 2 minutes or you forfeit the game." Katie felt the blood drain from her face. A forfeit meant a loss. A loss meant Rust Creek remained a freezing ruin. It meant Zayn surrendered his entire sports empire to Kobe and the corrupt board members. Chapter 22. Zayn stared down through the glass of the luxury owner's box. He rested his hands on the mahogany bar. His heavy silver signet ring tapped a fast, anxious rhythm against the wood. He watched the paramedics carry Paul away. He watched the referee point a finger at Coach Brian. The stadium speakers announced a 2-minute warning. The elite team smirked, leaning against their sticks on the far side of the rink. They engineered a forfeit. They won the wager through brute force and corrupt officiating. I risked my empire to elevate her, but I never intended to put her in the crosshairs of beasts. "The Ice Cats lack sufficient players," Desmond noted. The beta adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses. He placed the leather briefcase on a side table. "The rules dictate an immediate disqualification." Zayn clenched his jaw. He did not care about the sports empire. He cared about the look of defeat on Katie's face down on the bench. Down below, panic consumed the team bench. "We need a body," Coach Brian shouted over the crowd noise. "Just someone to stand on the ice so we do not forfeit." Katie looked at the clock. 1 minute and 30 seconds remained on the warning timer. She looked across the ice at Kobe. The giant alpha laughed with Jesse. They planned to ruin her hometown. They planned to steal Zayn's legacy. Anger burned away her panic. "I will play," Katie declared. Coach Brian stopped shouting. He stared at her. "You are the operations manager. You do not play hockey." "I learned on the frozen ponds of Rust Creek," Katie shot back. I skate faster than any man on this roster. I just lack the gear. She did not wait for his permission. She turned and ran down the tunnel. Her scuffed boots pounded against the concrete floor. She bypassed the locker rooms. She sprinted toward her office. She reached the open doorway. She stepped over the splintered wooden door resting on the carpet. She ignored the jammed turnstile down the hall. She yanked open the bottom drawer of her filing cabinet. She grabbed her old, scuffed skates. The thick tape on the left heel held firm. She grabbed them and ran back to the ice. 45 seconds remained. Katie reached the bench. Coach Brian dug into the equipment trunk. He tossed her a pair of oversized shoulder pads. He threw a spare Silver Ridge jersey at her chest. Katie kicked off her boots. She shoved her feet into the rigid skates. She pulled the laces tight, ignoring the burn in her fingers. She strapped the bulky shoulder pads over her gray pullover. She pulled the spare team jersey over her head. The fabric hung loose, reaching down past her thighs. She grabbed a helmet and strapped it under her chin. 10 seconds remained. Katie grabbed a spare stick. She opened the bench gate. She stepped onto the frozen surface just as the buzzer sounded. The stadium fell into dead silence. Thousands of fans stared at the ice. They saw a tiny beta woman swimming in an oversized jersey, lining up against giant alpha athletes. Whispers spread through the crowd. The board of directors, sitting in their VIP section, pointed and laughed. Up in the luxury box, Zayn stopped tapping his ring. His dark eyes went wide. His heart hammered against his ribs. The sharp scent of crushed blackberries drifted up through the arena vents, hitting his senses. He gripped the glass railing. He watched his mates skate toward the center face-off circle. Kobe looked down at Katie. He barked a loud, mocking laugh. "He brought the manager to play?" Kobe sneered. He hit his stick against the ice. "This is a man's game, little beta. Go back to your spreadsheets before you get hurt." Katie ignored his taunts. She bent her knees. She gripped the shaft of her stick. She looked at the puck in the referee's hand. "Drop it," Katie told the official. The referee blew the whistle. He dropped the black rubber puck onto the ice. Kobe lunged forward, planning to use his towering weight to crush her. But Katie did not fight his strength. She used her speed. She pushed off the back edges of her metal blades. She slipped right under Kobe's arm, tapped the puck away from his stick, and stole the play. Chapter 23. The stadium erupted into a deafening roar. Katie flew across the ice. The metal blades of her taped skates carved a flawless path. She felt the freezing wind hit her face through the cage of her helmet. She did not possess the muscle to endure a body check. She knew a single hit from the giant alphas would break her ribs. She relied on pure, unmatched speed. Jesse charged her from the left side. He looked like a freight train coming off the rails. They expect me to cower, but they forget I learned to skate on broken ice to survive. Katie dropped her shoulder. She feinted right. Jesse committed to the hit, throwing his entire body weight forward. At the last possible second, Katie spun away. She dragged her back skate, stopping her momentum. Jesse crashed hard into the safety glass. The impact shook the boards. Katie grabbed the loose puck and pushed forward. She passed the puck to Steven. The team captain caught the pass and skated into the offensive zone. The elite players scrambled to recover. They expected an easy win. They expected the tiny beta to surrender. Katie threw their entire defense into chaos. The clock ticked down. 45 seconds remained in the final period. The score stayed locked at a tie. Katie skated hard. Her thighs burned. Her lungs screamed for oxygen. She dodged another brutal swipe from an elite defender. She kept her head up, watching the play develop. 30 seconds. Kobe chased the puck into the corner. He dug his skates into the ice and gained control. He looked down the rink, planning to waste the remaining time and force a shootout. He turned his head, searching for a teammate. He left his blind spot open. Katie pushed her limits. She pumped her legs, rocketing across the rink. She came up right behind Kobe. She swung her stick, a sharp, precise jab. She knocked the puck right off the blade of his stick. Kobe roared in anger. He reached out to grab her jersey. Katie ducked under his heavy arm and broke away. She had the puck. She had an open lane to the net. 15 seconds. Katie skated straight down the center of the rink. The elite goalie crouched in the crease, tracking her movements. The giant man blocked most of the net. Katie knew she needed a perfect shot. 10 seconds. She crossed the blue line. The noise of the crowd faded away. She heard the scrape of metal blades on the ice. She heard her own ragged breathing. She heard the heavy, thundering sound of skates charging up behind her. Kobe refused to lose his wealth. He refused to let a beta humiliate him. He abandoned the play. He ignored the puck. He put his head down and charged Katie's blind side with violent intent. 5 seconds. Katie pulled her stick back. She aimed for the top right corner of the net, a tiny sliver of open space above the goalie's shoulder. She planted her left foot. She swung the stick forward. The curved blade hit the rubber puck. The shot snapped off the ice with a sharp crack. The puck soared through the air in a perfect rising arc. The goalie reached his glove up, but he reacted too late. The puck hit the back of the net. The red goal light flashed bright against the glass. The buzzer blared through the stadium. The game ended. The Ice Cats won. In that exact fraction of a second, Kobe reached her. He did not slow down. He did not hit the brakes. He slammed his shoulder directly into the center of Katie's back. The illegal, brutal hit launched her forward. Katie flew off her skates. She crashed chest first into the unforgiving barrier. The impact knocked the wind completely out of her. The breath left her lungs in a rush. She hit the ice, sliding across the frozen surface. Darkness pulled at the edges of her vision. Chapter 24. Up in the luxury box, Zayn saw the hit. The red goal light flashed below, signaling the victory. It meant nothing. He watched Kobe slam his mate into the barrier. He watched Katie crumple onto the ice. A sound ripped from Zayn's throat. It did not sound human. It sounded like an apex predator watching a threat touch its territory. His alpha control shattered into a million pieces. The beast took over. No man touches my mate and keeps his hands. Zayn did not use the stairs. He did not wait for the elevator. He burst through the luxury box door and ran to the edge of the lower balcony. He gripped the metal railing. Without a single moment of hesitation, the Alpha King vaulted over the edge. He dropped 15 feet. He landed on the frozen surface of the rink. The impact cracked the ice beneath his polished leather dress shoes. His knees absorbed the shock. He did not slip this time. His wolf instincts commanded his balance. The crowd screamed. They watched a billionaire in a pristine suit drop from the sky. Kobe stood near the barrier. He looked down at Katie with a sneer. He raised his stick, preparing to taunt the fallen beta. Zayn crossed the distance in a blur of motion. Kobe turned his head just as Zayn reached him. Zayn did not offer a warning. He did not throw a punch. He grabbed the front of Kobe's thick jersey with both hands. He lifted the giant defenseman clean off the ice. With a roar of pure rage, Zayn shoved Kobe backward. He threw the towering Alpha through the air. Kobe crashed into the safety glass with a sickening thud. The thick pane shattered. Webs of cracked glass rained down onto the ice. Kobe hit the floor, knocked unconscious before he even realized what hit him. The stadium fell dead silent again. No one breathed. No official blew a whistle. The elite players froze on the ice, terrified of the violent king standing in their path. Zayn stood over Kobe. His chest heaved. He bared his teeth, a low, rumbling growl echoing off the arena walls. His sharp cedar scent flooded the rink, demanding absolute submission from every wolf in the building. He turned away from the broken glass. He dropped to his knees on the ice next to Katie. The anger vanished from his face, replaced by raw, crushing panic. He ignored the freezing water soaking into his expensive suit trousers. He reached out with shaking hands. He unclasped the chin strap of her helmet and pulled it off her head. Her auburn hair tumbled out of its tight bun. Katie groaned. She shifted on the ice, clutching her ribs. The oversized shoulder pads absorbed the worst of the impact. She opened her eyes and blinked. The bright arena lights blinded her for a second. She focused her vision. Zayn hovered over her. His dark eyes searched her face for injuries. His heavy silver signet ring pressed against her cheek. "I scored," Katie whispered, her voice rough and breathless. "You scored," Zayn confirmed. His voice shook. He pulled her up into his chest, burying his face in her hair. He inhaled the scent of crushed blackberries. "You won the game. You won everything." Katie rested her head against his shoulder. The freezing ice did not bother her anymore. The heat of his body anchored her. She listened to the frantic beating of his heart against his suit jacket. He jumped from a balcony just to reach her. He destroyed a giant alpha to protect her. The crowd broke the silence. A deafening cheer erupted from the stands. The fans pounded the glass. The ice cats leaped over the bench, sliding across the ice to celebrate their impossible victory. Zayn ignored them all. He held Katie tight, refusing to let her go. He secured her hometown. She secured his empire. The fight ended, and they won it together. Chapter 25. Deafening cheers shook the Silver Ridge Stadium. Fans pounded the glass barriers. Security guards rushed the ice, struggling to hold back the surging wave of spectators. Cameras flashed in a blinding barrage, capturing every second of the chaotic aftermath. Katie lay on the freezing ice, her chest heaving. The cold surface numbed her legs, but she did not care. She looked up. Zayn hovered over her. His suit jacket dripped with melted frost. His knees rested in a puddle of water. He possessed zero regard for his expensive clothes. He reached down. His large hands gripped the hem of the spare team jersey. He pulled the fabric over her head, tossing it aside. He unstrapped the oversized shoulder pads with quick, precise movements, discarding the plastic armor onto the wet ice. Katie wore her familiar gray pullover again. Zayn pulled her up. He wrapped his arms around her waist, dragging her flush against his chest. The contrast shocked her system. The ice below felt freezing, but Zayn radiated furnace heat. "I fought the current my entire life, but his grip feels like a permanent safe harbor." "You took a brutal hit," Zayn whispered. His voice sounded rough, thick with lingering alpha rage. He traced the line of her jaw with his thumb. "I took the win," Katie corrected him. She rested her hands on his chest, feeling the frantic rhythm of his heart beneath the crisp white shirt and ruined jacket. She looked past his shoulder. Kobe remained slumped against the shattered safety glass. Paramedics rushed the rink, loading the unconscious alpha onto a stretcher. The board of directors sat in the VIP box, their faces pale with defeat. They owed Rust Creek a fortune. Her hometown was safe. Katie turned her attention back to the billionaire king. The mate bond pulsed between them, a tangible electric current demanding completion. She did not want to wait. She did not care about the thousands of cameras broadcasting the moment. "I am done fighting you," Katie said. Her voice carried over the noise of the crowd. She looked deep into his dark eyes. "I accept you as my mate." The words sealed their fate. The bond clicked into place. A jolt of pure fire rushed through her veins. The sensation hit like a collapsing dam, washing away every doubt she ever harbored. Zayn let out a deep, possessive groan.
He crushed his mouth against hers. This kiss held zero hesitation. It carried a hungry, desperate heat. Katie parted her lips, welcoming the invasion. Zayn tangled one hand in her loose auburn hair. His other hand slid under the hem of her gray pullover. His bare fingertips brushed against the warm skin of her stomach. The direct contact sent a shock wave of desire straight to her core. Her breath hitched. She arched her back,
pressing closer to his solid frame. Zayn traced the curve of her waist, his touch igniting a trail of fire.
He mapped the lines of her ribs, his hands exploring her body with desperate reverence. The stadium noise vanished from her mind. The world shrank down to the friction of his lips, the taste of his mouth, and the overwhelming, intoxicating heat of their completed bond. Every fiber of her being urged her closer. The kiss turned into a breathless, erotic battle for dominance.
Katie gripped his dark crimson tie, using it as a tether. She pulled him down, grinding her hips forward, a natural instinct fueled by the mate pull. Zayn's hands moved to her thighs, lifting her slightly, holding her flush against his rigid body. They fed off each other's heat, momentarily oblivious to the sirens of the paramedics and the roar of the thousands of spectators witnessing their union. Zayn broke the kiss. He rested his forehead against hers. Both of them breathed in ragged gasps. His dark eyes burned with intense devotion. Coach Brian and the rest of the Ice Cats swarmed them. The players skated in a tight circle, banging their sticks against the ice in a triumphant rhythm. Desmond stood by the shattered glass, talking into his phone, securing the legal contracts. Zayn looked around at the celebrating hockey players. He watched them skate. He looked back down at Katie. "The wager is secure," Zayn stated, his chest rising and falling. "But I have a question." "What?" Katie asked, a wide smile breaking across her bruised face.
"I own this franchise," Zayn said, his brow furrowing in genuine confusion. "What exactly is an icing penalty?" Katie threw her head back and laughed. The sound echoed across the frozen rink, bright and full of life. Chapter 26. 6 months passed. Winter gripped the northern border, burying the territory in thick white snow. Inside the Rust Creek pack house, the cold held zero power. Brand new, commercial-grade furnaces hummed in the basement. Heat pushed through the vents, warming the polished hardwood floors. The board of directors transferred the funds within hours of the Charity Cup defeat. The dilapidated ruin transformed into a fortress of comfort. A sprawling kitchen replaced the cramped cooking space. Thick, insulated windows kept the freezing wind outside. Katie sat on a plush rug in the center of the main living room. A gas fireplace dominated the back wall. Bright blue and orange flames danced over ceramic logs. The fire required no stoking. It produced no dying embers. It offered a steady, flawless source of heat. She wore her dark-washed jeans and a simple white t-shirt. She leaned back, resting her head against Zayn's chest. The Alpha King sat on the rug behind her. He did not wear a pristine charcoal suit. He did not wear a dark crimson tie. Instead, he wore an oversized, bright blue knit sweater featuring the Silver Ridge Ice Cats logo, the sleeves bunched around his thick wrists. The garment looked hideous. He refused to take it off. "I spent my youth building an untouchable corporate empire. But true power sits right here, on this rug." Tank rested on Zayn's lap. The orange tabby kitten had grown into a sturdy young cat. Tank stretched his front paws, hooking his claws into the fabric of the tacky hockey sweater. Zayn did not move. He let the beast destroy the yarn. Katie reached into her pocket. She pulled out the scratched plastic master keycard and tossed it onto the coffee table. Next to it sat Zayn's heavy silver signet ring and his platinum pocket watch. He abandoned the trappings of his billionaire status the moment he walked through her front door. "Desmond called an hour ago," Zayn murmured,
His deep voice vibrated against Katie's back. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her flush against his torso. The stadium's final renovation phase is complete.
Your office features a reinforced steel door now. No one will rip it off the hinges.
Good, Katie said, tilting her head back to look at his sharp jawline.
I cannot manage a championship team with a draft blowing on my neck.
Ellie walked through the living room. Katie's younger sister carried a tray of fresh, warm pastries she baked for her culinary school final project. She set the tray on the dining table, offered a quick wave, and vanished back into the kitchen.
The tuition bill never caused another moment of stress.
Zayn's matte black credit card handled the debt in a single afternoon. Zayn shifted his weight. He buried his face in the crook of Katie's neck. His lips brushed against her pulse point. A shiver of anticipation raced down her spine. The mate bond hummed between them, an ever-present source of deep, intoxicating heat. "You look ridiculous in that sweater," Katie teased, her breath catching as his teeth grazed her collarbone.
You purchased the garment,
Zayn countered, his voice dropping into a dark, rough register.
I wear the colors of my mate.
He turned her in his arms, shifting her body until she straddled his lap. Katie tangled her fingers in his dark hair. The playful banter faded, replaced by raw, heavy desire. Zayn slid his hands up her spine, the friction sending sparks across her nerve endings. He gripped her hips, guiding her down against him.
The thick layers of denim and knit fabric provided little barrier to the intense, burning heat pooling between them.
Katie leaned down and captured his lips. The kiss started slow, a deep exploration of taste and heat. Zayn groaned, a low, possessive sound that made her stomach flutter. He parted her lips with a stroke of his tongue, diving deep. He pulled her tighter against his chest, eliminating the space between them. The contrast of his dominant strength and gentle touch overwhelmed her senses. She rolled her hips forward, matching his rhythm, drawing a sharp, ragged breath from his lungs. Her hands roamed beneath his tacky sweater, tracing the hard, coiled muscles of his chest. His skin felt like a furnace against her cool palms. They broke the kiss, breathing hard. The gas flames cast a warm glow over their flushed faces.
I told you on the first day that you were out of my league,
Katie whispered, resting her forehead against his.
You cited a financial gap,
Zayn replied, his dark eyes shining with devotion.
I bought the league. I closed the gap.
Katie smiled. She looked at the warm pack house, the sleeping cat, and the billionaire king who tore his own world apart just to stand by her side. You did, Katie agreed. Your ridiculous billionaire stunt was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Quick favor, don't go anywhere yet. If you thought Katie was brave for looking an alpha king in the eye and telling him he was out of her league, wait until you meet the heroine in this next story on your screen. You have to hear this disaster unfold. It's full of the same sass, high stakes, and alphas who have no idea what they're getting into. Click the video on your screen right now. It is totally unhinged.